welcome back to another powerful episode of Healthy Waves, the podcast where we explore the real stories and the tools behind resilience, healing, and human transformation. So, now imagine, if you could teach kids as young as 8 and how to master their emotions, stand strong through adversity, and make choices rooted in self worth. So, before the world tries to define their value for them. And I'd love to bring our guest today. I'd love to introduce you with our guest. Uh, so, please welcome Brian. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Oh, thank you, Avik. I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, I guess you have already heard about our one of the shows where we discussed with Brian and Deborah. But today I'll keep it very open and very uh, discussion kind discussion where I'd love to ask Brian if you can share your story.
Well, to not to go on too long,
Hmm.
um, now I'm 47 now, and I had
Yeah.
had problems with anxiety and depression most of my life, but I was, had that largely controlled. But when in 2015,
Yeah.
um, my after being a caregiver for my mother for a few years, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, taken into the hospital. I went into a very deep depression and I ended up attempting suicide by jumping.
Yeah.
And I survived, but was quite badly injured. And now I'm in a wheelchair most of the time. And uh, part of my right leg had to be amputated. But something that happened early on in my recovery was I gained a newfound desire to live and a new perspective that has really helped me a whole lot. And so my mental health is now better than it's been since I was a child.
That's, I mean, that's the thing which, um, from it's a lot of things to learn from, Brian. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so I'll love to ask this, resilience is the word which kind of we hear often, but uh, but what does it really mean? Like when you are at 8, 12, or 16 years old. So uh, I mean, how it look like in the life of a young man or young person, I would say, young person who is navigating to the school, peer pressure, internal struggles. So what do you say?
Well, yeah, it's certainly true that you hear about resilience a lot. It's talked about a lot today, and it does make sense because you can't control what happens to you and what happens in your life very much. Um, what you the only thing we can try to do is how to manage when bad things happen. How to manage our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions. What does that look like for for a young child, somebody in school? Um, trying to, it's a very difficult time of life, but if that young person can remember and develop that mindset that what has happened today is not, you know, my parents used to say, it's not the end of the world. I got tired of hearing that, but it is true. If you had a bad day, that doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be as bad or worse. Now, it might be, but then the next day might be better, or the next day might be better. So, kind of taking a much longer term, bigger picture view and, trying to keep it together for the moment so that you can give it a chance to improve over time.
Mm.
I don't know if that made any sense.
Exactly makes sense. And also like it's a very wild to think like it's really wild to think like how early stress and the overwhelm begin these days, and um how often kids are expected to just deal with it without any tools. So yeah. And have you noticed a difference in how how boys and girls processes these tools or respond to this kind of emotional education?
Well, I don't have any children myself.
Mhm.
Um, I know that things are a lot more challenging in many ways now
Mm.
than they ever were, just because of the internet and social media and just the expectations that society places on them at such an early age. Um, Children have access to far more information than I had when I was in school. But that also means they have a much greater access to false information or misleading information or information that they can't really put into context. And so it can be very upsetting to them. Um, how are the young people managing? Um, Boy, I don't know. It must be quite a challenge.
That's fascinating. I mean, I love that you are treating resilience like a muscle and not the personality trait. Yeah. So,
Yes.
and also like many people still think that, I mean, think about suicide, especially in the youth, and is a cry for the attention as well. But you speak about it as a response to hopelessness, right? So, how do we shift this outdated narrative and start speaking truthfully about what actually drives um, these thoughts in young minds?
Well, yeah, I think that's very important that
Hmm.
we prepare to have these uncomfortable conversations. We talk to our children about hopefully we talk to them about crossing the street safely. That's something that my business partner Deborah talks about often.
Hmm.
That we teach our children how to cross the street safely. Uh, we you know Well, maybe some parents don't talk to their children about sex, but talk to your children about sex and smoking and drugs and all these things the parents need to develop. And I love a
Hmm.
something that you have said before, and a
Hmm.
term, the term emotional literacy.
Yeah.
If parents learn how to talk to their children
Hmm.
about their emotions and how to recognize kind of how to recognize when their feelings when they're wanting to do something very serious in the moment, whether that's
Yeah.
harm themselves or
Hmm.
go push somebody out. Recognize when those things are happening and take a moment and slow down because feelings are very powerful, but they can also change very quickly.
True.
So really, of course, it starts with the parents to educate the children,
Mm.
and with greater education and knowing the right words. If the parents can talk to their children about emotions, the children will be able to talk to their parents about emotions,
Mm.
and they'll have the right language. They'll know how to express what they're feeling,
Mm.
and that fosters a greater communication.
True. And so, like, what kind of language should adults be using when talking to kids who might be showing early signs of despair?
Well, you yeah, the parent might not, something we Deborah and I have run into is parents don't want to talk to their children about suicide or hopelessness or
Mm.
self-harm because they'd be afraid that they'd be putting, ideas in their children's head, ideas that
Mm.
weren't there before. Well, I'm afraid those ideas are already there. Either they'll develop them on their own or talking to their friends. Somebody is going to talk to your children about self harm and suicide. Who do you want it to be, parents? Do
Mhm.
you want it to be you, or do you want it to be their school friends and the television and
Yeah.
internet personalities? Um, so having this very serious conversation, and parents can be really busy, and they have a hard time finding time to sit and have a serious conversation with their
Mm.
children. Um, well, it's really important, if certainly you love your children, you'll make the time.
True. And like, if you can also talk about the prevention, like how can programs like yours bridge the gap between traditional education and the emotional survival skill? I mean, especially in the communities where mental health is still a taboo.
Yeah, well, something that our program, we call it the 5 stages of intellectual development. Uh, the idea is there are resources that talk about your emotions, and we do mention emotions in our program.
Mm.
What we're focused on is um, kind of understanding how your brain and how your thinking develops through your life, so that when those emotions are running high, when your feelings are very strong and you want to act on them, whatever that action might be and whatever the emotion might be, that your emotions can work in harmony with your brain, with your thinking ability, and hopefully keep you out of trouble. It also gives, um, it also does provide a language, a vocabulary that you can use to talk about your feelings and um, put your current life situation into a kind of context where you'd be able to discuss what what challenges you're facing and what you can expect in the future. So we hope that parents will take that program and will go through them with their children,
Mhm.
so that then they have this shared language.
Understood. And also, like, have you seen success stories that show how even a small intervention changed the course of a child's life?
Uh, well, our program is still pretty new, one of our biggest successes was not with the child, perhaps, but definitely with the parent. And that was a parent. Um, the mother and father decided they were going to use our program with their two young children, and one of those one of those children, a 14-year-old, said, "Oh, maybe my friend, so and so, uh, pardon me, should go through this program with us because he's attempted suicide for the fourth time." And the mother was absolutely, just stunned because she had no idea. Neither of the parents, their child never told them this. But yeah, that's very difficult for even that child to go through, that their friend, has attempted suicide four times.
Mm.
Uh, and that that piece of information only came out because um, our program was introduced to them.
Okay.
The topic was brought up, and they volunteered that information.
Understood. And also, like, I think sometimes we underestimate just how little it can take. One message, one trusted adult, one moment of understanding. So, yeah.
Oh, very well said, Avik.
Yeah. And also, I mean, there's also um, an adult layer to this. I mean, because grown ups carry the unresolved pain that trickles down. So, uh, what do you think? Like, what responsibility do schools, parents, and society hold in uh, in modeling the mental strength and showing kids that what resilience look like in action?
Well, that's the most important thing, right? Is that
Mm,
um, you know, very young children can sense hypocrisy in parents when they're being told one thing, but they're seeing something else. So the most important thing that an adult could do, a parent could do, is
mm,
to demonstrate this resiliency, demonstrate this emotional literacy, this willingness to communicate,
mm,
because we can't do things all on our own. We need other people. We're made that way. Um, so when the child sees this, um, and sees their parents do this, they will learn from that and imitate that behavior. So that would be more important than any, than reading or listening to any program, is if their parents model this behavior themselves.
mm. That's quite interesting, yeah. And and for the adults who feel overwhelmed themselves, how can they pour into young people without draining themselves?
Sorry, yeah. How can they,
Mm.
can you ask that again, please?
Yeah. So I'm saying like for the adults who feel overwhelmed, how can they pour into the young people without draining themselves?
Oh, yes.
Mm.
I beg your pardon. I did understand the question. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so tough too. I mean, the parents are in a world that is more complicated than it has ever been before, more complex. Um, and, often they are very drained. And yeah, you have um, unresolved trauma that the
Mm.
parents have. And sometimes that carries over onto the child, or at the very least, it drains the parents, and so it may be difficult for them to have that emotional strength themselves to be able to really engage in the difficulties of their child.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully you have both a mother and a father, and
Mm,
they can help share that burden so that
mm,
no one parent is having to do the whole job themselves. And you may have to involve um, somebody else, a trained professional, because you make a good point. If the parent is completely drained, they aren't they won't be able to help as as effectively
yeah.
to model this behavior for their child.
True. Exactly. Wow. Wow, that's lovely. And any suggestion you would like to add for the listeners today?
Well, big thing, when you are feeling strong emotion and you're feeling like your strong emotion is pushing you to make a very serious decision, as we always say, wait one more day. Um, you know, go sleep on it or
Mm,
give it some time. Wait one more day and maybe another. Uh, because like I said before, emotions are very powerful and they're very real.
mm,
I'm not trying to deny emotions. Um, they can also change very quickly based on your mood. Sometimes you just, have a good night's sleep or you have a good
mhm.
meal and you feel completely different.
Yeah.
So, wait one more day. You know, uh, we can get angry at each other before we lash out and get into a big fight.
Mm,
Wait one more day, take some time, step away from the situation, or just, you know, hold on. But yeah, we need to help each other in this world.
exactly. Exactly true. Very true. Yeah. That's lovely. Really lovely. And the listeners, I don't know, like, uh, but I am walking away from this conversation both tired and steady, because I mean, uh, what Brian has reminded us that resilience is not just about pushing through, it's all about making a decisions sometimes every single day to stay. So, if you're a parent, teacher, coach, mentor, or someone who simply cares about the emotional future of your youth, I urge you to visit the survivors of hopelessness.com. Watch the music video, share the stories, let someone know they are not alone and that there is a way forward. So, dear listeners, if you are struggling yourself, please remember you are not weak, you are not broken, you are welcome temporarily, but you can rise again. So, Brian, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the best medium?
Yes, if you go to the website, survivorsofhopelessness.com, there is a contact us that links back to our first website. And
Yeah.
there is a way to contact either Deborah or myself through email. So that would be the best way. Or you could search my name, Brian Wardale, on Facebook. Um, but probably through the website is the most reliable way.
Perfect. Perfect. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is Avik on with this uh, learning in this episode. Stay strong, stay connected, and stay human. So, thank you so much.